Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of ESA BIC Nordic Academy. Today, we are pleased to welcome Henning Sejer Jakobsen, Associate Professor at Aarhus University. And Henning is also a colleague of ours in ESA BIC Denmark and have been working with our team for 3 years now, helping support the startups in portfolio of ESA BIC Denmark. So we are fortunate to have Henning on board our team. And today we are fortunate enough also to have Henning speak about one of his areas of particular interest and one of his, I guess, also research topics. And that is disruptive and vertical innovation for high-tech startups. So Henning today will present and discuss these two concepts, which are really essential and pertinent for high-tech startups in general, but of course also for high-tech startups aiming to utilize space technology, space systems. And I know that Henning will also perhaps present some pieces of his latest research as well. So I'm very excited to welcome Henning, and please, the floor is yours, Henning.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, no.
You can see it?
No.
What have I done wrong?
Yeah, now something is happening. Perfect.
You see it now? Good.
Yes.
I will go through my agenda, and I will talk about disruption and how we do it actually, because there's no real model for doing it, and I will come into vertical innovation that means. And finally, we'll follow up as soon as described with my suggestion, how we put it into a frame of technological entrepreneurship. So that is very little agenda. My background is actually a mechanical engineer background, but I'm followed as a Master of Science in Industrial. And my PhD is actually in radical innovation, so that I will follow a little bit up. But I have been involved in more than 150 startups, so that is the reason probably why I'm involved in the ESA BIC also. And present, I'm doing the same at Aarhus University. And I also did a lot of articles as a most of all because I have to, but also because it's damn fun. But besides that, I've done a lot of books in entrepreneurship, and I've done 2 books, in one Danish and one in English. In negotiation, industrial negotiation, I've done 3 books. And in innovation, I've done 3 books, and one is on the way. And one is on the way. In my big passion is regarding beers, but it's a book on more than 1,000 pages, so it's difficult to call it funny reading. It's more deep. That is my background, but I will start actually to say where we frame everything, also where we frame innovation regarding ESA BIC. And usually when we use that in a cone model, we see as the performance of what we have to reach. It's actually some way to do things better and better and better. That is normal approach. And according to cone, we have a delight, and that is where we have to be to have something that promise more than we actually can present. We do it by branding, we do it by a lot, but also ESA BIC. It's also a good name, as a lot of people say, but even it's a good name, it's not for certain there's anything into it, and that is called delighters. And you see it also in the fashion industry, that is where the delighters are. But you can't do unless you have a basic that you actually perform something. That must be. And according to that core model, we have to be in the middle of this and see if we can make business. So we can follow up by make sure that we have a right perspective and we do what we promise. And for that, if that is not succeeded, we opposite, we go reverse, and eventually we will die. And if we want to be in that area, we have to innovate. And that is where I have my approach. But this model I will get to later, because how do we make sure we are in this little square where we are supposed to be? And by doing that, we use disruptions. And we look about disruption, we have two approaches to work with disruption. One of them is disruptive technology, and the other one is disruptive innovation. Both disruptions, but it's just two different ways. And in ESA BIC, we actually can approach both ways, and we should do it at the same time, actually, in my point of view. The terms is invented by Clayton Christensen from many years ago, and he put it into we can actually reach the result of disruptive disruptions, both by a small step, by making it sustaining, and we can also do it by take a huge step and simply go in to make a refinement, to make a new way of thinking. And the only reason why this is possible, it's actually because the established industry is sleeping. And because they are so narrow in what they are doing, it's so easy. And it's easier than it ever have been to disrupt. And that is the whole idea about that. Because people get more and more narrow in what they are good at, their key competencies, they even have a key manager and so on. So they stick to what they are good at. And therefore they oversee the opportunity. And that is where entrepreneurship have a huge impact for doing business. And that is what I want to explore. Let us say, what is it? If we look at the figure I showed before, that during the time, the performance each company is doing become better and better. Naturally, it does. Running improvement and so on, it's not a new terms, it's what we always have done. And that is the performing that we do by improvement. If we have something new, we have found out something, it can be ESA BIC related, and it can be on the really early step in the development. Then we have a chance by take over the existing market simply because nobody realize you because you're under the line. You are not in any direct competition situation. You're far away from borders by forces. So that is why we have this chance as entrepreneurs, and we look no matter where the existing company is. If you're not in line of this mainstream follower, then we can approach with disruptive innovation. But naturally, we have to be aware of that. That could be the technology, but we also could do it as disruptive innovation, the innovation approach. And the innovation approach, that is not related to the technology, it's related to the new business model. And the new business model is quite different. It can actually be exactly the same, just another way of selling, like Uber, like Tesla, like all this thing. That is nothing new. It's actually a new, different approach to it. The terms innovation or disruptions is actually a little bit difficult to explore, because it means actually by implementing disruption, mean that the old market disappear. That is why it's concerned a lot of companies, because if that actually occurs, the company will die. And it's not only Kodak and so on that will die because they oversee this. It's which company that will die if they oversee this threat from outside that something is better than you provide. We have some examples that the one is horizontal, the value chain horizontal, where we get another product and we get to a vertical innovation. That it's the business model, and we get more into that vertical aspect a little bit later. If we look about the Netflix, it's one we usually see as something that have disrupted the market. And naturally, a lot of people are on Netflix, even the CO2 crime and agenda. There's still a lot of people are still on the Netflix, but have not vanished Denmark's Radio or TV2. So even though we consider it to be some kind of disruption, the old industry is still there. So, but they are scared about Netflix. All the activity you see in Denmark's Radio and in TV2, they are combined to Netflix to avoid that Netflix actually destroy them. So it's not that they have made disruption, but the company behind it is scared. And you see the same with Tesla. Have Tesla disrupted the market? Not at all. It's a minority that are actually driving the Tesla. But you see, whatever company producers or car producers you're looking at right now, they are in some kind of Tesla mode that they have to compete to Tesla. They have to make electrical car. So they are scared that Tesla actually disrupted. Also because it's so highly commercialized as a disruption, but have not disrupted to the terms of disruption. But we have other Some of you might recall when we have a pocket watch. It was in all pocket, not in this century, but the last one decade. Even one of the most beautiful, you can see it in the old town in Aarhus if you want to. It takes 1 year to make this watch. It's extreme. It's called the most beautiful watch. And it was supposed to be in the pocket. This is from Switzerland. And usually when we talk about Switzerland, we also talk about watches. But Denmark had almost the same history. If you look at all the factories in Denmark, all towns all over Denmark had a lot of watch factories. We had this place, and it's mechanic that almost no one can do what we could in those days in Denmark 150 years ago. And it was pocket watch. During the First World War, we find out that to have this in the pocket, it might give some problems. So we find out that it should be on the arm instead. And between the two wars, it would become more and more fashion to have it on the arm instead of the pocket. And there was a clear line that the pocket watches was disappearing and the arm watches was something that's growing. But none of the Danish company realized that the same technology, but not disruption, have to be moved to the arm. Instead of a chain, you have to put a link on it so it can be on the arm. None of them survived. All of them were stuck to the old fashion, and all of them are dead today. Not because we didn't have the technology, but because of the disruptions in the market, the way of selling, the shops that were sold, the way you were selling, and the way you placed it was disrupted. And also for ladies, later on we found out that it's a jewelry. It's not about clocks, it's a jewelry. And that was the last killing for the Danish watch industry, as it's become a jewelry. But the last that was on the market simply died. Now we have a new one coming. And also we see the old fashion is now become popular again among a lot, that you actually have a pocket watches as a jewelry, not as something in the pocket, but something visible. But that is a little story that it's actually disrupted, at least the Danish watch industry. There's no one left. Totally disrupted. And therefore, we have to be aware of what happened, what is coming. My watch from my arm is coming, so we have to be aware of that. And if you look at the Canon model at the beginning, this is the area where companies have their business. We have to make sure that what we promise to our customer and what we deliver, in some way we have a span that we can use. And that means there is area here we might oversee, because it's not a part of our business. So we don't see it. And also at the low end, we don't see anything, because we are focusing on our core business, where we have to be between and what we deliver to our customer to provide the right satisfaction. And if we want to be an entrepreneur, I want to approach a new market, we have to start where nobody is watching. And that is what disruption is about. We can go, as I described in the figure, we can start with the low end, go below that nobody watched, like we saw with the Hyundai car, for instance. At the beginning, it was a lousy car. Nobody looked at it. You have to have a German car or Swedish car, American car. This Korean car was so bad quality, it was even not allowed to call it a car. And they start on a low end, and eventually they become better and better and better. And today, a lot of company owners actually is considering if I should have a Volkswagen or a Hyundai. In Denmark, we saw it with OK gasoline station, that they were coming in. It used to be called service station, because there was a guy filling gasoline in your tank and he washed your window. It was a service. It was not gas, it was a service. When OK for 30 years ago approached to a market and said nobody wants to pay for it if they can do it themselves. And that was laughed off, because this low is not about price, it's about service. They totally misunderstood, and they took 40% of the market in 2 years. From a low end, and then that just was in the market. It was too late to do anything. They didn't realize it, and today all have the same concept actually. And we can actually also go the other way around. From the high end, nobody watching you. As we did with 3D printer, that it was only exclusive places. We have the 3D printers as a technological institute and so on. And today we all have a 3D printer in our home, because it's going down. and nobody realized it. It was new companies on the market space, not the usually printers. It was new producers taking over market because they didn't see it coming. And that is the whole idea with disruption. Don't go into a direct competition, but focus on a new technology or a new business model, think vertical, or combine these two things. And that is the whole idea with disruptions, that by disrupt, we have a chance to get into to penetrate an already existing market with strong player, because the strong player don't see you are coming before it's too late. As a parasite, like a coronavirus or something. So that is the whole idea. Not because I want the entrepreneurs to be parasite or be coronavirus, but the thinking is perfect. And that is how we simply, because they don't understand, they don't see you before it's too late. By disruptions, you take over a existing market. But how do we do it? It's not that easy, because we have to accept some of the ideas that not common in the brains. So instead of just do what we used to, we have to simply do something not expected and work with that for a period. And that is what the whole idea about concept. And that will destroy the idea that when you have an idea, you have to stick to your idea, you have to raise capital and so on, because it doesn't matter actually. Let's see how it works actually, because the change is, when we talk about change, it's not only about the product, as we see, it's also the process, it's the business model, it's how the system is related to a lot of other things. It's also how we socialize it with the customer, and how we finance, not only how we pay for the product, but also how we make sure that there's money in the entire system. And we also have to change the culture, because it's a different way if we're sitting in front of the screen instead of what we used to, and so on. And finally, we have to have a lowest end, that is political innovation. And any innovation is defined by the lowest factor. That means we have to invent on all of them, instead of just have a brilliant product. And it's hard for me as an engineer to realize that, but it is what it is. But how do we do that? And that is what I want to show an example that is actually possible to do. We have to work both with horizontal to get something brilliant, and to see it holistic in a narrow area, but at the same time. And that is what it's about. So usually we have a product, we need to make it 70%, fine, and the job is to make it 100%. It used to be the normal setting, at least in the 80s. But now we know that it's also how you produce it. It's also how you make it. It's also how you relate it. And today, when we work on all these areas, it's not important if we are good in one of them. Actually, a good business plan is defined on how many tops you have. Anyone can go to China to make a new radio. It's damn difficult to go to China to make a new Bang & Olufsen concept. And that is where we have to move. We have to be related, so you're not stick to one of the tops, because it's easily to copy or to take over. But if it's related to a lot of things, and it doesn't matter if it's insulin, it's not just medicine care. It's also about the pen system. It's about the advisement, and it's also about how you make sure that there is a cure later on, and how you're measuring and so on. There's a lot of aspect in all of it. And that is how we become vertical, or go from tacit to explicit. And how do we do that? Yeah, if we look at the vertical chain, as we described, we can see there is some areas where we have to be in control of if we want to do a business. That is well known when we talk about business plan, but how do we actually do? Yeah, we make innovation. It's not like we fulfill a business plan, we create it. Exactly the same way as we did when we had a product, we do exactly the same. Create a lot of ideas without any direction, without any judgment and so on. We just get it in all the different areas. And then we have created this process in all the different areas, isolated, not merged together as might be and might be, because if we look at the vertical chain, the argument in the vertical chain is those arguments where on an earlier step would have killed any idea. And I think all have realized that by being an entrepreneur, that when you have made a brilliant idea, it might be too expensive, the customer don't like, it doesn't fit to anything, it's a wrong color design. Yeah, it's related to all this. So therefore, we have to invent on all aspects in the vertical chain. So when you have a great idea, you have approximately 50% of your business model, because we have to invent the rest in all steps and a lot to get beyond what is normal. And then we have done that and merged it. Then we make chain. We see if we have a product, what can we do else? And now we're not related to, but only one of them is brilliant. We can make different chains in that model. So we don't work with one business model. We work with several models. And a lot of you have seen it when we, for instance, look at new product on the internet. It's not you can get it for free, then it's nice. But you can also get it, you have to pay, and then you pay, then it's another business model. So that is the vertical chain. And then I will get to my recommendation based on actually a big survey or a big report I just done. I examined the 100 biggest company in Denmark. And why are they big? And we find out that it's not what we teach right now is due to our circumstances. Out of this 100 biggest companies, 30 of them is production company, and they are examined. And what happened? And the great thing about this huge company is there is a biography for what they have done, so it's easy to study how they become big. And actually, the first was that they had a competence. They were skilled in some area. For instance, Maersk. It was not, why did he transport goods on the sea? He simply did it because he was a captain on a ship. So therefore, he started on a ship, and he's brilliant. He did it. He know how to get to harbor. He know how to handle an harbor. He know all that. And then he did that. He found out there was an opportunity out there. And this opportunity, it had to be blended. It's not the opportunity you hunt. You use your competencies in an area, and from there you explore. That means when you have to grow, you do exactly the same. And when you grow out of the next step, and what makes the company survive, it is that we actually can combine two blended areas and get what is called blind spot, and it's the same as disruptions. So that is the whole idea about the argument that we have to be more strict on competences and take the opportunity there instead of have this blind focus on the market, at least if you want to grow. So that means to my final charts, what I want to do is actually we made a recommendation for the startup. What is the most 10 important things when you want to start up? Yeah, you need some capital. It's a big, probably also the first argument, you get 50 grand. That is it. But actually, it's also the next one, because money is not enough. You always underestimate what you need. And here we have to work with capital without money. How do we do a network? How do we use resources? And also something is strong in ESA BIC. If you go to that, then the next step is leadership. Because leadership and innovation leadership is diverse from a lot of other aspects, because you do what is impossible. And for that skills to do what is impossible, we need new leadership roles. It can also be management, because we need that, but that will not be before leadership. And this is actually the complexity in operation management that we need. And then you have that, we also need the competence to exploration. Otherwise, we can't get into the area where we are strong, because it has to be based on competences. And then we do that, then it's naturally easy to get into the tacit, how it becomes explicit, that is not related to my knowledge, but suddenly we have a knowledge bank or something, but we actually are strong in the area where we want to cope in. And when we do that, we can ready for make the opportunity recognition, to make the blending, to make what is needed in the area I have a knowledge. And if I have that, then I can make the exploitation, get out where it have to be big. And finally, we have a product. And that is contradictory, because the product is often what we start with, but it's not the most important according to this and Herman. It is the product. If you have a risk, don't matter almost what you have a product, and the rest is just to do and more. If I summarize what I here described, we have to look at where the company are and where the company are and what they are focused on. And what we all looked at, there is some blind spot where we can take, oh, we come from the bottom or we come from the top by disruption. And that is the whole idea with disruption. It can be by technology, or it can also be by the new business model. And the new business models, naturally, is vertical. And the vertical, it is actually to go through all the chains. And when we have been through that, we can make the blind spot. So simple. That is what I want to present in a fast way.
Great. Thank you very much, Henning. Thank you, Henning, and thank you for your presentation and also for your interesting discussion. I think we'll wrap up for now, and we'll share your slides, Henning. You will send that to Josephine?
Yeah.
And also share this video to interested parties. So yeah, thank you very much, and let's roll the video, Josephine, and wrap up today's session. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, Henning. Thanks.
Yes. Bye.